Indicted Fiction, the most untrue crime podcast out there. Everything you're about to hear is fictional, but the feelings you may experience are 100% real. The Case of Adam's Murder, Episode 8, Confession, recorded the night of October 28th. To Adam, I feel as though everyone around me has tried to set me in your place. Like I lived my entire life just to replace you when you died. I don't think it's possible, but that's how it feels. Mom gave me the job that I know was meant for you. Dad called me Champ the other day, a nickname I know he reserved only for you. Chantel texts me nonstop, like she has no one else. I know you are her everything, and I'm trying to help her through this, but I'm only the kid's aunt. I could never take the place of his father or teach him the things you could. Chuck has been on my case lately, and Joel has been distant yet closer than ever. I'm not you, Adam. I could never be you, and I hate that all these people are putting me in the place you rightfully should have been in. Had I died, you would have grieved as yourself. No one would have tried to put you in my place, but that's a given, I suppose. I see the pain everyone is going through. It's all valid, and, like I said, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm only one person. When I'm not having nightmares, I dream of you. I dream of the life you could have had. We could have had. A life where you introduced us to Chantel, and we accepted her with open arms as you two went to rehab. As you two found jobs and a life together and brought another drummer into this world. Would life have gone that way had you not died? There's no telling, but in my dreams, I like to pretend. I like to pretend that the world is perfect and that you're still here, that I never had to imagine you dying, that I never had to see you die. The coroner's eyes still haunt me. The look he gave me before flicking the sheet away and exposing your cold body still gives me chills. He was wrong for that. I hope whatever debt you had didn't carry on to whatever afterlife there may be. I hope you're resting easy. And with each passing day, I'm going to pull myself back into my place as Abigail. I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm an aunt. But most of all, I'm haunted by you. I hope that last part doesn't make him feel guilty if there's any chance he might have heard that. It's the truth, though. Every waking minute I think of him, and every night I dream of him. To think of his body rotting in the ground makes me sick. His face haunts me. Went to work today. Less chilly than the other morning, which was nice, all except the sweat stains under my armpits. Reminder, don't wear gray to work. In all honesty, I was excited to see Jamal. I feel like I can relate to him without him being too close to the situation. I can say how I feel without the guilt of putting more weight on him. He says how he feels about his daughter. I say how I feel about Adam, and that's that. No tears, no shared memories of the lost loved ones to pour over. When Jamal greeted me with a black eye, I was furious. 1,000 questions must have poured out of my mouth before he finally got me to shut up. We hid away in the break room, and he told me someone had slashed his tires, waited at his car, and beat him up as he tried to leave work the night before. Jamal is tall but not very meaty. I could easily see someone beating him up, especially if they surprised him. He told me he couldn't tell who his assailant was as they wore a bandana over their face, but he said they told him one thing: stay away from her. For a moment, I wondered if he was seeing a woman that he wasn't supposed to. But the look in his eyes said all I needed to know. She was me. I wondered if Jamal was mad at me, if he thought it was my fault. If he did, he didn't show it. He helped me in the produce section, seeming to not want to leave me alone. Or maybe it was that he didn't want to be alone. He talked about his daughter a lot, and although I had the urge to talk about Adam, I let Jamal have his time. At lunch, he bought me a sandwich, and we sat together. I found myself thinking about the letter I wrote to Adam, and realized Jamal is placing me in a spot not too far away from his daughter's place. I could never, ever fill it, but this sort of companionship reminds me of my own dad, and I'm sure Jamal misses these moments with his daughter. I couldn't help but stare at his eyes sometimes. Poor dude got it, that's for sure. Even now, sitting on my bed watching people crowd in front of Smith's in the dark, I can't think of who would do that to him. After lunch, Jamal introduced me to other departments. He had done this on the first day, but I think he has hopes that I'll become a supervisor below him. He told me I have potential. I was having a grand old time laughing at some joke Carl in home decor had said when a familiar face passed by. Chuck glared at me when he walked by. I thought we had made eye contact, but he kept walking. Then he swung back around the other end of the aisle Jamal, Carl, and I were on. Again, I thought he was glaring at me as he sped by. The third time proved that he was in fact staring at Jamal. I waved at him this time, and it was like I wasn't there. And by the fourth time, I had to say something. I stepped away from my coworkers, telling them I had to pee, and by the time Chuck was creeping by the fifth time, I was there to snatch his arm. You're not very good at sneaking around, I said, dragging him away from where Carl and Jamal were. He looked at me, aghast, as if he hadn't just made the most blatant move ever. I asked him what he was doing. He said he was just shopping, so I snatched up his right hand, peering down at his knuckles. No cuts, no bruising. He reeled his hand away from me, asking what I was doing. I told him my friend had been punched, and he had nothing to say. Ah, geez, I'm sorry to hear that. Chuck loves to play dumb, but I'm tired of playing, so I asked him what he was doing last night. He said he was out with the boys, something I can't fact-check since I'm not one of the boys. Again, maybe I'm reading too much into things, but it seems kind of suspicious to me. I looked down at Chuck's cart to see exactly what he was shopping for. Staring back at me was a teddy bear and a box of condoms. I laughed. Oh, and I mean laughed at him. That's when it hit me that we were standing in the candle aisle. I guess Chuck has romance on the mind. So I asked him, "Aw, were you embarrassed to see me? Who's the special lady?" Chuck is a ginger, and if you think a ginger's face is always red, you should see when they blush. He turned beet red and started stumbling over himself. When I heard the words from his mouth, I about fell out. You? A teddy bear and condoms? For me? From Chuck? Who does this man think he is? Hi, hello, I know your brother just died and you've been on the lookout for his killer, but I was just curious if maybe you'd like to fuck tonight? Oh boy, I was rolling. Jamal had to come over to see what I was laughing about. I almost felt bad about it, but mind you, this boy has been following my tail for almost a decade. I saw how embarrassed he was, so I told Jamal I was going on break. He looked at me like, oh shit, and scurried off, but not too far. He was still within earshot. I quickly apologized to Chuck. I don't want any bad feelings between us, but that was a brazen move on his part. I just told him that I'm not ready for that right now, but I'd be willing to hang out with him. He seemed relieved that I didn't rip into him any further and quickly left the store without buying the teddy bear or condoms. He didn't say much of anything, so I really wasn't 100% sure how he was feeling. Jamal came over and asked if I was okay. I said yeah and took the items back to their place and shoved the cart in with the others at the front of the store. I just don't know why he had to go and do something so stupid. I was mad at him the whole rest of my day. Jamal and I talked as I restocked the carrots and lettuce, but at the end of the day, he was off dealing with an angry customer as I mopped the floors. Chuck walked in. I don't know how he knows when my shift is over, but he knows. I scurried to the back of the store and clocked out before he could get to me. I even left out the back door, dragging my bike with me, but he still somehow caught me in the parking lot. I almost rode around him, but he jumped in front of me. I slammed the brakes and hopped off my bike. Getting right in his face, I asked what the fuck his problem was. That's when I saw he had been crying. Why I care, I don't know, but I instantly backed off and hushed my voice. He told me his plans had been ruined. Chuck had wanted to come to my place, apologize, and invite me over since Joel wouldn't be back until tomorrow morning. He would give me the teddy bear at his place, and we could hang out. He says he didn't plan on having sex, only wanted to prepare for anything. He just wanted to have a nice evening with me after thoroughly apologizing for being so careless and thoughtless. Should I believe him? Well, I did. After the sniveling apology and explanation in the parking lot, we went our separate ways. He was to come over in an hour, giving me enough time to shower and decompress. After Chuck's ordeal in the store, 2 bottles of juice had exploded on me, so I felt like a sticky mess. My parents wouldn't be home until around 6, so we had time to watch a movie. I turned on the local news while I got dressed and waited for him to show up. There was a feeling of apprehension brewing in my gut, and I couldn't tell if it was because Chuck was coming over or because I was waiting to hear if another body was discovered. From award-winning author Tony Evans comes Sour, a dark tale of Appalachian witchcraft and supernatural folklore. Sam Fletcher had heard the stories his whole life, folk tales and legends speaking of something evil that lurks within the dense woods of Gun Rack Holler. That's all they were, though, just stories. But when Sam accidentally crossed over into Gun Rack Holler 2 years ago, something happened that made him question these old folk tales. What he found was a little black book with strange symbols on its cover, the promise to end all of his worries. The price? One that Sam would realize far too late. The loss of his only son, Danny's soul. Now with the help of his childhood best friend, Sam is on a mission to get his son back. But in order to have a chance at reuniting Danny's soul with his body, Sam is forced to call on an even darker presence, one that may not even be real. She's said to have the ability to resurrect the dead and fix things that aren't fixable. Locals call her the Bone Lady, and they say her power is stronger than that of Satan himself. Sour by Tony Evans is available on Amazon or by visiting www.tonyevanshorror.com. Follow Tony Evans on Instagram and Twitter at Tony Evans Horror. Puppies, puppies, puppies. That's all these two babbling news anchors could talk about. I wondered if the segment would ever end when Chuck knocked on the door. I knew it was him because he always did the shave and a haircut, 10 cents, knock. As I walked to the door, the back of my mind itched. Was Chuck really capable of beating somebody up? I mean, he had hit Slim, but that was when he thought he was connected to Adam's death. Maybe he's racist, my mind whispered. A more plausible idea was jealousy, but anything's possible. But in all honesty, I don't think he's capable of extreme violence. He's been a crier for as long as I've known him. So I opened the door, dumb thoughts twirling around in my mind, and I was met with a bouquet of flowers. Chuck shoved them at me before pushing his way past into the living room. I really didn't know what to say, so I said nothing, setting them on the kitchen counter and asking him what he wanted to watch. He was acting odd, standing all stiff and fidgeting with his phone. I took this for nervousness, but I'm still not entirely sure what it was all about. I asked if he wanted popcorn after making some. He declined. I asked if he wanted soda after opening one for myself. He declined. I even offered to watch a movie I thought he'd like, and he declined, stating he'd like to watch something I would enjoy. I like horror movies, and I know Chuck does not have the stomach for gore, so I asked him to pick instead. Halfway through my bag of popcorn, we finally agreed on a movie. I had relaxed back into the couch, not happy with the movie choice, but happy that something had been picked. We got to a scene where the main character meets the girl he thinks he's going to marry, and there it was, Chuck's arm on my shoulder. You know, I had sat over a foot away from him just to set some boundaries with him. I thought some were already set in the store, but again, here we are. Somehow, he had squirmed his way over and snaked his arm around my shoulders. No one has done that in a while, and I gave in. I leaned close to him, hoping he would keep it this simple. You don't realize how much physical touch matters until you hole up in your room for months. I felt like crying. In a universe where Adam was still alive, I would have never done this, but because I'm hurting, I guess I need someone. I need someone. Halfway through the movie, my parents barged in. I guess we had spent too much time arguing over what to watch. Chuck quickly retracted his arm and slid to the end of the couch as my mom flicked the light on. I wasn't embarrassed. In fact, I was entertained. I know my parents have been waiting for this moment since Chuck's existence in our lives. And I know Chuck is a bashful bastard. I was able to disconnect from the situation and enjoy it as Chuck's face ripened to a cherry red. My dad smiled and laughed, greeting Chuck. He always called him Chucky, something none of us kids called him. If he grew out his hair longer, I could definitely see him starring in his own horror movie. My dad pretty much told Chuck to beat it in the most polite way possible. I was almost mad, but then Dad said he had reservations at a sushi restaurant in Yuba City. Sushi? I've only had sushi 2 times in my life, and they were for very special occasions. I had to wonder what this special occasion was for. So Chuck left with a bowed head, but not before giving my father a glance that was definitely hard to stomach. I still gave him a brief hug after he left, but Chuck felt cold. Dad and I loaded up in our van, but Mom stayed behind. When I asked why she didn't want to come with, he simply said, "She's tired, hun." Conversations with my dad always start off slow. I never know what mood he's in or what he wants to talk about, so I brought up work. As I spoke about Jamal, I realized how many little details I was going to have to leave out. My mouth was moving as my brain was calculating what was safe to say and what I couldn't. I tried to stick to the fact that Jamal had lost a loved one as well, and he was a good manager, and thank God my dad changed the subject. We had driven past a homeless camp set up on the sidewalk in front of the abandoned theater on East Street. He shook his head and said, Adam was onto something. I looked from the shopping cart and tent encampment back to my dad, waiting for him to continue. He knew what the real problems were out here. He saw it all. He shook his head saying, all these people that drive by and do nothing, say nothing, they have no idea what it's like. Tears welled up in his eyes, and soon mine were flooded. Substance abuse has affected our area drastically, increasing crime, the homeless population, and the overdose deaths. Adam knew it all because he was it all. He knew where to pull the problem from its roots. Part of me wants to follow in his footsteps, but would I be overstepping? I know he kept a notebook with ideas on how to help people like him, flaws he saw in the justice system and in the rehabilitation centers he had been to. He could relate to these people. Meanwhile, I feel like someone preaching from the outside of the church. I have no credibility. I can only work from what he's left behind. I think my dad feels the same, having never struggled the way Adam did. You begin to feel useless or like you're a bad person. Having to tell Adam that he had a problem was always the hardest, especially once he became an adult. He was an adult making his own decisions about his own body. Who was I to say he was doing wrong? It may be illegal, but he was only harming himself. The statement I loathed was, I can get clean anytime I want. While I wish it were true, it's simply not. But as a concerned loved one, you're only berated for the things you say out of love. I want you to quit isn't an example of control. It shows someone cares. You have a problem isn't to make you feel guilty, but only to open your eyes to the damage you're doing to yourself. I was glad when we pulled up in front of the sushi place. It not only broke the silence, but also kept my mind from draining into sewage. So Chuck, huh? Dad asked as soon as we were seated. I had to laugh. There was no way I was getting out of explaining this one. So I kept the conversation light. Work this, Chuck and I are friends that, and then he hit me with, where's Adam's gun, Abby? His usual honey brown eyes had turned into cold dark pits as he asked. My heart fell into an abyss as my mind went to the gun hidden in that tree at Star Bend. I wanted to lie. I wanted to say I didn't know where it was, but he knew. He knew very well. Instead of answering, I asked, why? His eyes had widened and I saw him thinking. He asked, why do you need it? I thought back to the dead bodies, the USB, Joel, the pills, Ricardo, Detective Bill, Jamal's eye and slashed tires, the two men Chantel saw the night before Adam was found, the grinding of metal through flesh, and a linoleum floor that would never really be clean. I thought about all the times Adam had brandished the weapon while we were out, all out of need for protection and never brazenness. But didn't that make it worse? I thought about Chantel's baby and who would protect her and the child. I heard Adam beg for his life, bargaining that he would have the money they needed so desperately. I felt the gun's weight in the pocket of my cargo pants as I walked down the street, and as I became more comfortable with it over a period of days, it sat heavily in my waistband. Like a teddy bear to a child, that weight signified safety in my mind. Images rolled by of a life I was living in secret, repeating my brother's deadly mistake. Over 2 sushi rolls and an appetizer, I told my dad everything. Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next Friday for Adam's Murder, Episode 9, Purpose. Don't forget, Adam's Murder will be published as a paperback and ebook October 7th, 2022, when the finale of Indicted Fiction, Season 1, airs. Pre-order is open, so be sure to head over to my website and pre-order your signed copy today. If you'd like to read the transcribed audio diary of Abigail Drummer, go to my website, authoralianapoe.com/blog. Each episode is posted on my blog under Indicted Fiction.